Please call the roll.
Stu Boyd,
Here.
Denise Chapman,
Here.
Lori Goebel,
Here.
Don Kirk,
Here.
Alexander Lessem,
Here.
Nancy Rumfeld,
Here.
Mike Scholl.
All right, thank you. Nancy, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Nancy? Denise, would you read the mission statement, please?
The Thompson School District will be a school district that empowers, challenges, and inspires students, faculty, staff, parents, school leaders, and community members to learn, achieve, and excel.
Thanks, Denise. We'll move to item number 2 on the agenda, which is the adoption of the agenda. I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, did you get that, Laura Lee? No? Okay. Any discussion? Let's proceed then to the vote. Would you please call the roll?
Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Aye.
Lori Goebel,
Aye.
Don Kirk,
Aye.
Alexander Lessem,
Aye.
Nancy Rumfeld,
Aye.
Mike Scholl.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. We'll move then to agenda item number 3, which is public participation. 3.1 deals with awards and recognition, and I assume that's you, Dr. Heller.
It is, Mr. President. Thank you. We have with us this evening a couple of folks to introduce who are taking on new roles, new leadership roles in the Thompson School District. We're going to start off with Mr. Stephen Dyke, our newest principal for Thompson Valley High School. You can come on up to the podium. Mr. Dyke is currently serving as the grade 7 through 12 principal of Ainsworth Community Schools in Ainsworth, Nebraska, a position that he has held since 2018. Before that, he worked for 17 years as the principal of Lansing High School in Lansing, Kansas, and 2 years as principal of Crest High School in Colony, Kansas. Mr. Dyke's career experience also includes service as a secondary science instructor. Mr. Dyke earned a bachelor's degree in education from Kearney State College, and he also holds a master's degree in education from the University of Nebraska, Kearney. Mr. Dyke, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, and Dr. Heller. I would like to tell you that I am incredibly impressed with everything I've seen of the district to this point. The welcomeness and the overall ability for the district to take the opportunity to make me feel welcome has been incredible, and I look forward to working with everyone, getting to know everyone over the next several years.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Board, any questions for our
Where's
newest?
Ainsworth?
I was going to ask you where Ainsworth is. I'm familiar with some of the small towns in Nebraska. I'm not sure I know
You
where
know where
Ainsworth.
Valentine is?
I do know where
We are about
Valentine
40
is.
miles west. They are our arch rival.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome to Colorado.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Next up, we are pleased to announce Dr. Jason Germain, who has been named the Director of Human Resources. As you all know, Dr. Germain is currently serving as the principal of Harold Ferguson High School and as the founding principal of the Thompson Career Campus. He has an extensive background in public education, including service in the Douglas County School District, as a department chair at Mountain Vista High School, principal of Plum Creek Academy, coordinator of instructional support services, director of special projects, and chief student advocacy officer. Among other career highlights, he also has worked as a part-time instructor at Metropolitan State University, I can't talk tonight, and at the University of Northern Colorado. Dr. Germain has earned a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from State University of New York at Cortland. He also holds a doctorate in school psychology as well as an education specialist degree in ed leadership from the University of Northern Colorado. We're excited to have you, Dr. Germain.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Heller, thank you for having me. I stand before you a little bit torn tonight, leaving Ferguson and what I would argue, sorry Steve, is one of the best school communities, if not the best in the world. I'm definitely, I'm sad to leave Ferguson, but I'm also excited for the next steps in their adventure and to watch it from afar. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity to take on this new role and serve the district in a different capacity. So thank you for having me.
All right. Questions or comments for Dr. Germain? Go ahead, Nancy.
I would just say that when I saw the announcement, I know you'll do fantastic in your new position, but I also know
Tell my new boss.
you've just done a phenomenal job with Ferguson, and so not to put pressure on who's ever replacing you, but they have some really, really big shoes to fill. So congratulations, and yes, I feel a little bit of your sorrow as well.
Thank you for those kind words.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions?
I will just let you know that interviews for Ferguson High School have started. They all day today, including the forum at the school, happened today.
Okay.
Tomorrow, finalist interviews are happening, so things are moving quickly.
So we should watch our emails for
Watch your emails
announcement?
soon. Yes, that's right.
Okay, very good.
We'll be
Congratulations.
kicking the old guy out quickly there.
Congratulations, Jason.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Is that it, Dr. Heller? All right, we'll move on to item 3.2, which is public comment. And so, Dawn, I'll turn that over to you.
Because the board wants to hear the viewpoints of the public and also needs to conduct its business in an orderly and efficient manner, it will schedule time during its regular board meetings for brief comments and questions from the public. The board will set a time for public participation prior to the business portion of the meeting. The time for each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, and each individual will only be recognized once. If there is a large number of speakers, the board may elect to take comments for 1 hour before the business meeting and conclude public comment after the business meeting. Public comments and questions at a regular meeting may deal with any topics related to the board's conduct of the schools. Speakers may offer such criticism of school operations and programs as concerns them, but are encouraged to exercise their speech rights responsibly. Speakers' remarks should be suitable for an audience that includes kindergarten through 12th grade students. Personnel matters will be discussed in executive session. Finally, as a reminder to all present, the board and staff do not respond to public comment. This is our opportunity to hear from students, parents, and patrons. The board may discuss public comment later in the agenda or on future agendas. And then our timer will be on the screen, which will give you the countdown. So first up, we have Tricia Sellers.
Just a few books with me, Tricia Sellers, City of Loveland. There are two of you on the board whose mission it is to go against the students and parents of children who identify as transgender. And the two of you use the Bible as a weapon for these purposes. Myself, a Christian, who has earned 2 degrees at 2 different Christian universities and am approaching my 3rd year, enrolled in a master's at Fuller Theological Seminary, I have some book recommendations for you. First, Women and the Gender of God by Dr. Amy Peeler, Associate Professor of the New Testament at Wheaton College. The Widening of God's Mercy, Sexuality Within the Biblical Story by Drs. Christopher B. Hayes and Richard B. Hayes. The Making of Biblical Womanhood, How the Subjugation of Women Became the Gospel Truth by Dr. Beth Allison Barr, Associate Professor of History and Associate Dean of the Graduate School at Baylor University. The Ballot and the Bible, How Scripture Has Been Used and Abused in American Politics and Where We Go From Here. What Paul Really Said About Women, an Apostle's Liberating View on Equality in Marriage, Leadership, and Love. Misreading the Scripture with Western Eyes, Removing the Cultural Blinders to Better Understand the Bible. And I have a list of these that I will be leaving at the back for anybody who is interested in expanding their horizons and not afraid to learn. So first, in the book of the Bible, in Genesis 1, 3 through 5, God said, "Let there be light." And so light appeared. God saw how good the light was. God separated the light from darkness. God named the light day and the darkness night. There was evening and there was morning the first day. So there is day and there is night, but there's also dawn and there's dusk, right? It's not just one or the other. Dr. Amy Peeler, author of the first book, Women and the Gender of God, writes that a thorough and deep reading of the incarnation narrative, the Bible depicts a God beyond gender. I know that's shocking for some of you. And a Savior who, while he was on earth, embodied a male, Jesus Christ. The unification in one person of the image of God that resides in both male and female created in God's image, masculine and feminine.
Your time is up. Thank you. Next, we have Sue Timer.
Good evening, Mr. President, Board, Dr. Heller. I'm Sue Timer. I am president of the Thompson Education Association, and I'm here just to let you know I learned last evening that some people in our community received a message from a group, Unplug, Plug In, encouraging them to contact you about the cell phone policy. They would like to see it, they would like to see no cell phones in schools at all. And unfortunately, it had several supporting organizations enlisted, Colorado Education Association. So I made some quick contacts. That was not sent at all by CEA. It's a group that CEA is loosely affiliated with because, yeah, we understand that cell phones are difficult in instruction. So I made it clear that members of TEA, including myself, had worked with the administration on some early versions of this policy and are supportive of the policy as it is, and asked CEA not to set us up like that again. But just so you know, TEA has had members reading the policy as it's progressed, has had voice in it, have had a really good collaboration with Dr. Heller and other district administrators, and we are very happy as TEA, at least in general, with the policy going forward. Thanks.
Sorry. That was fun. Jeff Mead.
So good evening, board. My name is Jeff Mead, and I stand before you today as the newly appointed Jedi Knight of PFLAG Fort Collins. Jedi feel and harness the Force, a natural flow of energy all around us, connecting us to each other. For PFLAG, Jedi is an acronym for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And I'll discuss each of those individually. Justice is a powerful term that means holding those accused of wrongdoing accountable for their actions and to ensure that those behaviors are not acted upon again. The LGBTQ community has long been bullied and excluded as different, as unwanted. However, it's time to take action steps to not just remove such negativity, but to create a community in which we are all able to live our lives with dignity. Equity doesn't just mean fairness. It means removing those barriers that keep us separate. Often the challenges imposed upon a group based on whatever perceived infraction they've occurred are not the same types of hardships faced by other communities. Often those imposed challenges are created by a group with perceived power. So much of the equity work we have to do is distributing power so that it cannot be weaponized. Diversity is all around us in our hair, ages, skin colors, and perceived genders. I've spent the last 10 years living and teaching across Africa, immersed in foreign cultures and belief systems, unknown languages, and racial differences. I noticed that when diversity is so prevalent, it ceases to have the same desire for recognition. In diverse communities, being different becomes the norm. Diversity is beautiful. Believe in that. Inclusion. I just spoke on how different we are, but exclusion is intentional. Exclusion is based on notions of superiority, which is an inherent character flaw. Superiority is rooted in hubris, that great downfall of Greek heroes like Achilles. Nearly every society on earth has story after story that declares hubris and arrogance dangerous and undesirable. And yet, hubris is often too quickly applied to the LGBT community to give them unfair hardships. We can do better. We must do better. So there it is, Jedi. Have I fully mastered these concepts? No. I'm not even sure that I can. However, I intend to try, and I encourage you to do so as well. May the Force be with you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Cassie Nagella, and I am a resident of Loveland, and I'm also an equity professional by trade. I'm here to express my strong disagreement and disappointment with the district's decision to eliminate the Department of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and to remove Dr. Maria Gabriel from her role as director. This district has repeatedly stated its commitment to inclusion and belonging for all students, and I want to ask directly, how can that commitment be real when the position and the team responsible for doing that work have now been erased? I've heard the argument that equity is now everyone's job embedded across all departments. And as someone who works in this field, I really need to be honest with you that when equity becomes everyone's job, in practice, it becomes no one's job. It becomes deprioritized, deprived of accountability, and deprived of resources. Equity work is not a mindset that you can just add on top of an existing job description. It's a specialized skill set that requires training, expertise, experience, and dedicated focus, the same as any other professional discipline that the district staffs for. Dr. Maria Gabriel spent nearly 20 years building that expertise within this district, and that institutional knowledge, those relationships with families and staff, and that specialized skill set don't transfer just because a policy says the work will continue elsewhere. I'm asking the board to please reconsider this decision. Students deserve to know that the adults in this district are not just saying that they're included and welcomed, but have the dedicated infrastructure to make sure it's true. Thank you for your time.
Don, that's it? Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes public participation or public comment period. Let's move then to, excuse me, to agenda item 4, which is the action consent items. I'll begin by reading the list of items that are part of action consent, and then when I finish doing that, I'll ask members of the board if they wish to pull any of these items. So 4.1 is approval of minutes for May 20th, 2026. 4.2, approval of minutes for June 3rd, 2026. 4.3, approval of personnel extra duty coaching recommendations. 4.4, approval of expenditures over $50,000. 4.5, approval of high school biology curriculum adoption. 4.6, approval of Head Start grant application. 4.7, approval of Thompson School District Habitat for Humanity Berthoud Elementary School Memorandum of Understanding Agreement for Shared Cost. 4.8, approval of Turner Middle School resolution authorizing the sale of real property and approving a contract. 4.9, approval of the 2026-2027 school calendar revisions. 4.10, approval of Ferguson High School 2026-2027 school calendar variants. 4.11, approval of 2026-2027 employee contracts. And 4.12, approval of 2026-2027 Board of Education calendar adjustment. Board, are there any of these items that you would like to pull for subsequent discussion?
I would like to pull item 4.8.
All right. That request has been made and will be honored.
I would like to pull item 4.3, please.
4.3,
Correct.
okay. Any others? All right, so let me do some quick renumbering. So 4.1, 4.2 stay as they are. 4.3, I'm going to make that 6.8 under discussion action. Yeah, a second to make a note here so I can keep track of that when we get to it. So item 4.4, approval of expenditures over $50,000 becomes 4.3. 4.5, approval of high school biology curriculum adoption becomes 4.4. And I would appreciate anybody jumping in if I get some numbers wrong here. 4.6, approval of Head Start grant application becomes 4.5. 4.7, approval of Thompson School District Habitat for Humanity Berthoud Elementary School MOU will become 4.6. 4.8, which is the approval of Turner Middle School resolution authorizing the sale of real property and approving a contract. We will move that also, since Nancy has asked for further discussion on that. That will become item 6.7 as a discussion action item. Get a quick. Pardon?
Because he,
I was actually going to use the Turner land deal as 6.7 and then move the approval of the personnel extra duty to 6.8. Is that all right? Okay. All right. Well, thanks. I appreciate you keeping track of me here. I could have gotten fouled up. All right. So, let me make a note here. So that's the extra duty. All right. So, the approval of the 2026-2027 school calendar revisions, that becomes 4.7. Am I correct?
yes.
Okay, thanks. The approval of Ferguson High School school calendar becomes 4.8. 4.11, the approval of the employee contracts becomes 4.9. And the approval of the Board of Education calendar adjustment becomes 4.10. Am I on board and correct with all these numbers? All right. Let's go ahead and approve these action consent items, these now 10 items, and then we will take a look at the two that were pulled from the action consent agenda. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the action consent items.
So moved. Second.
All right? We proceed to the vote on that because that's not a discussable motion. So Laura Lee, will you call the roll, please?
It was Dawn and Denise, right? Okay, thank you. Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Aye.
Lori Goebel,
Aye.
Dawn Kirk,
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem,
Aye.
Nancy Rumpfelt,
Aye.
Mike Scholl.
Aye. All right, that passes 7-0. So the action consent items, part of the agenda, will be approved. We will take a look at 6.7 and 6.8 at the end of the discussion action items. So the next agenda item is number 5, which is public participation, the budget public hearing. And Laura Lee, I believe members of the community needed to sign up to participate in that. Do we have any participants? We don't. All right. Since no one has signed up to participate in that, we will move on then to agenda item 6, which are the discussion action items. We'll deal with these one at a time because they will be voted on individually. Item 6.1 is the approval of resolution of budget adoption for 2026, 2027. And so here you are.
Good evening, Mr. Board President, members of the board, Dr. Heller. My name is Bob Ebersol. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I will be talking about 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 to cover all those items that relate to budget adoption.
All right, that's fine, but we will need to vote on them separately.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Just because some of the people that will be watching tonight and in the audience may not have heard any of the previous presentations, I want to go over the process, how we did the budget development, recent questions that we'll be addressing, next steps for next year. So the process, this year's budget actually started right after the board adopted the budget last year. And then it started getting involved with the first week of March. We had 2+2 meetings with board members to go over where we thought we would be with the potential deficit that we would have at that point and some of the initial thoughts that we'd have. We had meetings throughout the year with the Thompson Education Association. We have a budget study group where they look at items that may be potential negotiated items. And in that process, we talk about where we are with the budget and what the things that will be going on, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We had provided to you an initial draft on your May 20th board meeting to meet the state requirement. At the June 3rd study session was the next draft. On June 8th was a public budget forum, not a hearing, but a forum. 3 board members attended and 2 members of the general public and the reporter from the Reporter Herald. Tonight, I would say was the final draft, but I actually have given you a document that changes the final to the final document in the public hearing, and you will have to vote to approve the various documents to make that happen. The budget document started with the October student count, and that was used to drive projections for the following year. The counts at each school drive the student-facing staffing needs. We then reviewed and projected revenues, revenue going down due to student population reductions, state funding going down due to the budget issues in Denver. It effectively went up slightly, $400,000. I consider that effectively level funded due to the limited funds that the state had. Expenses for this year and for next year, we have moved capital items off of the operating and onto the bond. That will be, that's done we've done that in the past and other school districts do that. Non-personnel expenses were level funded wherever possible unless we had to deal with some unexpected or planned increases. We reduced about $1 million in administrative positions. We assured that we level funded all other positions after that. We negotiated with the Thompson Education Association as approved. The contract was approved by the board previously. In that agreement, the licensed staff will receive steps and columns. That will be offset by 4 furlough days. Administrative, professional, technical, APT will receive a 1.76% raise. That will be offset by 4 furlough days. Classified staff will receive a 2.76% raise, which will be partially offset by 2 furlough days. Furlough days are unpaid days and therefore reduced number of days that the staff will be working. This does result in a balanced budget with a modest draw on the reserves, about $1.6 million. Some of the recent questions that have come through from several board members and other people of the public, and I will thank Nancy Rumfeld for some of the items that are on there. One of the documents that gave you was a replacement of page 9. That will now provide additional information, did not change the bottom line numbers, but it gave the information of what is the expected ending fund balance, the expected percentage, which is about 10.58% of the budget revenue. We have a 3% TABOR requirement. And for all funds that we have except for bond redemption, that 3% would be $7.6 million. So we meet the TABOR requirement. Board policy is a reserve of 5 to 15%, and we are still within that board policy as well. Also on the sheet, we've projected the student count and then the per pupil spending, including all expenses within the general fund. And we include a required statement saying that future budget actions will assure that there is no ongoing deficit spending. Those are some of the requirements on that part. The other thing that's important to note that the budget resolutions are a summary of what the budget packet is. The entire budget packet is incorporated by resolution. So each of the funds on page 9, 33, 35, 36, 37, and 39 through 43 give the details for each of the spending and the revenue for each of those funds. So therefore it requires for that. And then appropriations, expenditures and revenues are incorporated into that. Regarding the vote to do beginning fund balances, Colorado Department of Education has informed us that the best practices is to incorporate appropriating the beginning fund balance. We do not spend that beyond what the authorized expenditures within the existing funds, but they recommended it to be that point. We've asked for what funds are dependent on the general fund transfers or subsidies. So you will see a line item of about $1 million of an expense that's transferred to non-general fund money. Fund 29, which is fee supported, it includes $79,000 worth of pro-growth funds. That is funds given to principals for their own professional development expenses. We have about $50,000 that supports the rental auditorium program. The various schools will often rent out their auditoriums or other facilities. We charge that. That needs to be taken care of by a facility. The rental, we try to get the best rates we can possibly get, but it still doesn't cover all the costs. And finally, we support the pools by about $317,000. Fund 22, which is federal grants, we have a match of $28,000. And 43, we transfer $550,000. That is our debt payment. So it comes from the general fund, goes to the capital debt. In the past, there would be an additional about $750,000 to $1.5 million worth of capital expenses that this year we've moved over to the bond. Question about per pupil purchase services. It's actually gone down using just the purchase services within general fund. Last year was $1,271 per pupil, and this year is $1,256 per pupil. We were asked how much is professional development mandated by the state. Technically, it's zero, but teachers are mandated to get professional development for their licensure. Our professional development fund, which in the non-FTE sheet, which came up at a couple of the public forums, it looked like it was zero last year, and it's $500,000. It's not. The $500,000 was broken down into 4 or 5 different other budgets. We've broken it out to be in one line item for this year. That is used to make sure that we help the teachers get their license renewal requirements, consistency of training through all schools, so we have the consistency, and training on curriculum for the purpose of dealing with our scores for reading, math, and other curriculum requirements on that. I've also given you another handout talking about the staffing changes. A previous request from board members was to go back to 2020, 2021, and go all the way to the current projection year for our staffing plans for licensed, classified, and administrative, professional, and technical. One of the things we've identified that we need to do, and we'll be doing on reports in the future, is to break out APT administrative at the schools, professional, and technical, because that really makes a difference. As a result of that, the analysis looking at where we've gone, administrators at 800 Taft in 2020 was about 34. We're about 34 now. That's it's slightly less than 1% increase. But from last year, we've reduced that from five positions for a 13% decrease. Administrators of the schools has gone down 2 positions this year for about close to a 4% reduction. It's essentially flat from 2020. And the professional technical has actually gone up 16 positions from 2020, 2.5 from last year, of 54% over that time period, or 6% for this year. And that's where a lot of the work does when I talk about compliance requirements that we have over the years that have increased regardless of the number of students that we have in our population. So those questions. Just a quick thing on, just because next year's budget flows from this year's, we will be doing the projections earlier as soon as October is done. We will be looking at the student-facing staffing earlier with an additional review of non-licensed staffing requests at the school level. We want to make sure that we have the same level of support for the licensed staff at each school, make that sure. You've already heard from the Master Planning Committee. We'll be reporting in January regarding the possibility of school consolidations. And we will be, as far as revenue, for the projections, we're assuming level funding for next year. That is what we will be for the following year, 27-28. That will be our starting plan. We will monitor state and federal opportunities. Quite often, we don't know the state until May of the following year. We can't wait that long. So starting out, the furlough positions, which is reduced staffing costs given up by the employees, if we were to restore that next year for 3 classes of licensed, classified, and administrative and professional technical, that amounts to about $2.5 million. Health insurance, we expect another 10% increase. That's about $2 million. The pupil reduction that we would projected at the moment based on last year's projection is a reduction of $2.3 million. That's without giving raises. If we were to give raises, our current calculation is it's $1.4 million per 1% for all employees. So we're looking at a 10% delta going into the budget season. The Colorado School Finance Project did an adequacy study many years ago, and they've updated on a regular basis. For all schools in Colorado, we are behind the ball as compared to other states, but for what we need as well. Their calculation for Thompson School District is we are $54 million under where we should be to provide the education we need to for our students. So that would lead me, and I can say at this point, because we don't have anything official, that we would look to support the various ballot questions that would increase funding availability to the school districts, whatever ballot question may come our way. And finally, we do still have some openings for the Audit Advisory Committee and the Citizens Mill Levy Oversight Committees, if anybody knows any of that, to the public as well as the board. That's my canned presentation.
All right. So, Bob, you said you were going to talk about 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3. So have you talked about all 3 of those, or was this 6.1 and then you'll move on to 6.2 and 6.3?
It covers all 3 because
All
there
right.
are different votes that you have to do separately, but
All
it
right.
still is all about adopting the budget.
Okay. So, Board, we're going to begin with 6.1, and I'll ask you if you have questions or comments related to the approval of the resolution of the budget adoption. Dawn, I'll start with you.
No questions, thank you.
Denise?
No questions.
Alexandra?
I don't have questions. I appreciate all the work that you and your team and everybody has done. I know it's been a challenge with the funds available to make everything work out, and you've worked very, very hard to do the best that we can. And so I really appreciate that. And I know there's been some hard cuts that have been made, and unfortunately probably some more coming. But thank you for what you've done.
Thank you. The entire cabinet and all the staff with the entire cabinet helped the process.
All right. Nancy?
Again, I always appreciate you taking the time to answer the questions. What I would say on the budget resolution is, in my view, it still does not comply with the expenditures by pupil, by fund. And this is something I ask for every year. And the other issue that I have with the budget, again, it goes back to the board really doesn't have much involvement until towards the very end, and it's almost impossible to make any recommendations or suggestions from the board, given that we are the ones responsible to the taxpayers for how the money is or isn't spent. I understand what you're saying about the professional development, that the $500,000 came from many different funds, but when I look at this, and I look at last year, what we spent for licensed professional development, other professional development, transportation, special education, it does add up to around, not quite 166,000. So this 500,000 clearly came from somewhere else. So now we're spending 665,827 when you add all of these things together, the district-wide plus license, plus other, plus transportation, plus sped. That is a lot, especially given that our enrollment is going down. I also, again, one thing is nice, our percentages match on the APT, so that's always good. But my point about that is that since 2021 fiscal year, the APT staff has increased 14.5%, while the enrollment has declined almost 9%. Licensed FTE has declined a little over 7%. So when I look at this, this goes back to where I still believe that we need to be looking more at the administrative staff and overhead per pupil to make sure that it's in balance. Because when I look at this, we're holding licensed teachers to the ratio of, well, enrollment's going down, so therefore we must cut licensed FTE. But on the administrative side, enrollment's going down, and it doesn't seem like we're not holding them to the same standard. I understand that there was a cut from from this current year to the next year, but when you look at how much it increased from 2021 fiscal year, APT increased dramatically, and so there's still a lot going on. Last year, you presented that there would be a study throughout this current fiscal year of understanding what was the burden or the requirement of all of the administrative positions for compliance, grants, all the different programs. I haven't seen this study. So I'm sure that what you're saying may be true, but we don't have the information. So again, I appreciate the work, but I am not comfortable with the way we have allocated the spending for our staff. And it feels like that, again, we are balancing the budget on the backs of the teacher, and that bothers me a great deal. It bothers me a great deal, and I think it's one of the reasons why we struggle with maintaining teachers. I understand that they like working here, but this really bothers me. And so it just gives me pause for voting yes on the budget resolution.
Before I move to Mike, do you have a particular question that you want to ask, Bob, or were you just stating your thoughts?
I was stating my thoughts,
Okay.
going through the numbers, looking at this, and seeing, we've reduced licensed FTE, but we really aren't reducing the APT FTE at the same rate. And if it's because of compliance issues, then again, where is the data to show us this so that we can validate it, not just with us ourselves as the board, but with the teachers, with the classified? And I don't have that information, and that's what gives me real pause.
All right.
Just one point,
Go ahead if you'd like to respond to
Sure.
something.
It's not just compliance issues. A large number of the people are staffing that relate to student attendance, their well-being, all making sure that the people actually show up, because if the student's in the seat, then they get educated. So we will certainly, I will energize the study as far as compliance and the student support.
All right, Mike?
I wanted to ask a question related to that, because I did see the question, and when I went back and looked through the staffing, it looked like the biggest increase in staff was, it was line 20 coordinators, and from 1 in 2020 to 9.3. What, can you tell me, explain to me that position?
I will not be able to. What, the name of the position, what's the title?
It
again?
was, it's just listed as coordinators, if I'm reading it correctly, and it says, line 2200, and it went from 1 to 9.3. I was curious, because, I mean, there was a suggestion that somehow the increase in staff was diminishing the quality of education, and so I want to understand, because there's a couple of those specific line items that I'd like to explained.
I won't be, generally it's coordinators, and the category is secondary education compared to admin. So when we have programs, we have to have people that, if they're supervising staff, we either make them administrators, managers, or coordinators. We try to put them at coordinator level if that's the actual proper thing. So when we have additional compliance requirements, so that would be, I would need to get you the list of what the programs they're running.
Or just what those job descriptions, that's fine.
right.
The other one too, that I was the security. Again, let me see if I can find the
So the security officer, I know the answer to that. In the past, we had the security monitors in the school budgets themselves. We were concerned that when push came to shove, that school might want to take that position and turn it into a licensed and a teacher, and we said, no, we still have to have security. So we moved them from the school to safety and security, and that's why they're over here instead of in the educational part. That's not actually an increase to the total thing, it's a reclassification.
Just you shifted it over. Yeah, okay, no, that's helpful, thank you. Oh, well, can I ask just for a point of clarity?
Sure.
So, well, I have a couple other comments that are unrelated to that, but are we going to go through each of the resolutions or have an opportunity to comment on each one, or is this, do we only get one bite at the apple, I guess is my.
We will discuss 6.1, 6.2, 6.3.
Okay.
Is that your question?
Yes, thank
we will
you.
discuss them separately. Okay? Ready to move on, Mike?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
good, thank you.
All right. Lori?
I guess my question too is just the fact that the imbalance, because I know there was no cuts to the administration last year when we did lose the 43 teachers because of student enrollment. So I guess I was anticipating a little bit more of a cut as far as the administration, student ratio with enrollment going down. And we are again losing teachers because of enrollment drop. But I don't see where we've actually, I guess, caught back up with the ratios.
So I would disagree with that. There should be a one-for-one reduction of admin as related to licensed staff.
Well, not necessarily one for one.
Even on a ratio basis, I disagree with that, because it's the work that needs to be done for compliance to support the principles of for instance, the Title IX complaint is done centrally. Whether that's done based on a student or a staff. HR deals with the staff. Learning Services deals with it for the students. That doesn't change whether we lose 1,000 students or 2 students. There's still the same amount of work for the investigation on that type of thing. Maybe volume goes down at some point, but it's a marginal level that's not going to make a difference. We grant-funded positions cover the admin for that. If those grants go away, those positions go away. But it's compliance, getting the students in the seats. Same thing, reaching out to parents, counselors, other things like that. I don't see that changing on a similar down road. I will say that we will get the study and explain all the various programs that they actually do and show what they have for that process. I will guarantee we'll get you that information.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
All right. In my 6.5 years on the board thus far, Bob, I've heard a number of the budget presentations, and I think I've learned a great deal, including an understanding of some of the terminology. You did use a term tonight that I'm not familiar with, so you can add to my education in regard to this topic of budget by explaining what a 10% delta is.
Sorry, I should have said $10 million delta. So going into next year's budget, the 27-28 budget, we're looking at $10 million that we have to cover just to stay level for where we are now.
All right. I didn't hear you correctly. I thought you said a 10% delta.
I could have said that, but it
and I didn't know
should have
what
been
that
10
meant.
million.
All right. Any further questions, board? We will need to vote on agenda item 6.1. So I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Did you get that, Lauralee? All right. Any further discussion before we proceed to the vote? Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
Before we vote, I just would like to add that, again, I understand all the work that is being done by finance. I will continue to say, though, that every year that this process does not include the board soon enough so that we can have real impact and input into the budget that Dr. Heller can take to his staff. It's not for us to give input to the CFO or the others, but to give input to you so that we can understand what these things are and to get some of this information out. And again, the statute, while everyone's always telling me we have to follow the law, the statute is clear what it says, that there should be expenditure by fund, by pupil. And so for those reasons, I just disagree with the process that we do. And I understand what you're saying, Bob, about the title compliance, but we have no data. I have no data to show me why that number would not change, even if we lost 1,000 students. And so I find that concerning. So thank you.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Lauralee, would you call the roll, please?
Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Aye.
Lori Goebel,
Nay.
Don Kirk,
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem,
Aye.
Nancy Rumfeld,
No.
Mike Scholl.
Aye. All right, that vote is 5-2. The motion passes. All right, let's move to agenda item 6.2, which is the approval of resolution of appropriation. Bob gave us information as part of his larger presentation, so we'll begin the question period. Denise, do you have anything you'd like to ask or comment to make about 6.2?
I do not. Thank you.
Alexandra?
No, thank you.
Nancy?
Again, the appropriation is supposed to be about the expenditures. So this appropriation is using revenues. We're not appropriating revenues, we're appropriating the expenditures, the amount approved to spend. And as far as appropriating all of the beginning fund balance, those should not be, I don't believe that those can or should be appropriated in full. We should appropriate the amount that we need to cover, like we've talked about, the I know it's in here somewhere, 1.5 million to cover for the raises. And so, and again, I know it may be common practice, but just because it's common practice doesn't mean what everybody else is doing is following what the statute says.
All right. Mike?
No.
Lori?
I may have probably maybe should have stated this earlier, but Bob, I truly do appreciate the work that you put into this to present a balanced budget. And maybe I should have stated this earlier, like I said. But amid the declining enrollment, the reduced revenue, and necessary adjustments, we've got that $6 million that between administrative reductions, furloughs, and a reserve draw. It addresses that immediate fiscal pressure, but it continues to allocate resources in ways that expand the district's role beyond core academics. I'm kind of seeing that consistently. There was an increase in nurses in other areas that, as I look through there. And we're failing to prioritize the values, the educational needs, and parental authority of the broad majority of our students and families. And I do recall you saying that when at that budget forum, that we must, when we set the budget, we put the students first. And I think as we look at it, therefore, we have to prioritize the core academics. I mean, simply put, that's our duty. And I'm just seeing a lot of areas that are not focused on that with different things. So we have limited resources, and I know it's a struggle, but we truly we have a duty to prioritize what unites the broad majority of families: strong reading, mathematics, science, history grounded in facts, critical thinking. Once again, coming back to what you said, putting the kids first in their education. Thank you.
All right. Dawn?
I guess I just want to point out that kids that are sick can't get to school. Kids that need medication that could be administered at school by a professional who has the accreditation or the professional license to do it means that kids can stay in school. So just one example of why we've prioritized what we've prioritized. I know that I might sound like a broken record right now, but it's important, I think, to point out that every vote that the board makes has fiscal impacts. Every one of them, all the time. And so perhaps it's because of the excellent education that I got here, but I can see how a vote on staffing to add coordinators when that was a position that we needed because we had a significant change in what our children were needing. And we realized that by consolidating that role and putting that admin role in place, we were also saying we were going to pay for it. I guess maybe that's like that fourth grade math that I clearly excelled at, but I really feel like it's important to point out that everything we vote on costs money, and everything we talk about includes how it ties back to helping to make sure the kids are in school, able to access the learning, and frankly, just because their butt's in the seat doesn't mean that they can access the learning if there are other barriers. So all of the things that we prioritize that end up as numbers and decimal points are represented by what we see in the schools when we walk through it. The two can't be extracted because we can't run these schools without the budget to run these schools. And it is, it would be a fun exercise, I think, for me to go through it with a red pen and say, I don't particularly care about certain things. I'll be honest, one of the things that I would cut first is probably the most unpopular thing I could say out loud. And I know without a doubt that if we were to cut that program, we would lose hundreds of kids. Because just because I don't particularly like or care for something doesn't mean that it doesn't have an impact. In fact, we know that for kids who struggle in school with one subject or another or all subjects, when they have something else they care about, it helps them engage in their education. And so being able to ideally make the connection between math and construction is awesome. But it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes they only come to school because of their sport or their activity or their extracurricular or their club or their friends, and that's what gets them through a hard time. It might be because they see an adult every day who checks in on them and just says, how are you doing? Or make sure that they get their meds on time, or make sure that they have food to eat because they may not have it outside of here. Those are sometimes reasons kids come to school, and I've watched a ton of kids who get through those rough times, and it feels like maybe they won't. Maybe they're gonna drop out, maybe they're not gonna find it, and then they do. Some of them are sitting up here, and there's more than one of us who got through a hard time that many adults probably looked at and said, there's no way they're gonna make it through, or that they're gonna be a productive member of society. And not only are we productive members of society, but we're sitting up here. And I can guarantee you that it wasn't just the person who taught that person to read who got us here. In fact, if you ask some of my kids, the people who got them to read are probably some of their favorite and least favorite people on any given day. Because while they know that they need it, it wasn't easy. It's not who they appreciate. And they didn't get through those hard times of trying to learn to read that some of the adults up here mock the kids who struggled to do that. They didn't get through it by having the adults who look down on them continue to look down on them. They got through it by having adults who believe in them. And sometimes the adults who believe in them aren't their teachers day in and day out. Sometimes it's the bus driver that they see first thing in the morning. And so I guess maybe I am gonna recommend that we do how the budget translates into, like how our votes every time translates into budget. I know that we've added that information. We continue to have that information in front of us, but it seems to be a lesson that's not sticking. And maybe it's because people didn't graduate from Thompson School District that they don't understand that. But I do, because I did. And my kids can, because they did.
All right. I don't have any questions or comments. I think we're ready for a motion then to approve item 6.2, the approval of resolution of appropriation 2026-2027 budget. So I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay. And did we get a second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay.
On the appropriation is about expenditure. And on the statute for the appropriation, wait a minute, am I on the right? I still believe that we should be showing 222, because that's expenditures, that's what's being appropriated. We should only be showing of the beginning fund balance, the amount that we're going to use and specify what it's going to be used for. And so that's the way I interpret the statute, and I think we're all capable of reading, so thank you.
All right. I think we're ready to vote. Laura, would you call the roll, please?
Stu Boyd.
Aye.
Denise Chapman.
Aye.
Lori Goble.
Nay.
Don Kirk.
Aye.
Alexandra Lesson.
Aye.
Nancy Rumfeld.
No.
Mike Scholl.
Aye.
That motion passes 5-2. Let's move to 6.3, the approval of resolution of use of beginning fund balance for 2026-2027 budget. And this time, Alexandra, we'll begin with you. You have any questions or comments?
I do not.
Okay, Nancy?
Again, when I look at the 2244-105, it very clearly that we're supposed to state the exact amount of the fund balance to be spent, state the specific purpose for which the expenditure is needed, and lay out the district's plan to ensure that using this fund balance will not lead to an ongoing deficit. The reason I bring this up is since I've been on the board, every year we draw down the reserves. Every year. And so at some point, we will need to address that, especially as student enrollment declines. So that's all I have to say.
Mike?
Yes. So I'm struggling with this discussion, not because of your presentation at all or the information that you provided. What I'm struggling with is it's really the tone and I think what we're focused on, and it really frustrates me because, you know, what we're dealing with is declining enrollment. And I think we're not unique. I mean, a lot of other districts are dealing with that. The discussion that I want to have is about how do we change that? How do we change that? You know, I know we're going to talk about kind of online hybrid learning at some point and ways we can increase that. I want to look at other opportunities to ask the voters for additional investments. Because I do think, regardless, we need to do more to educate our students and to provide, to build our civic and education institution in this community. I want to have that discussion. I don't want to keep having discussions about cutting budgets and cutting teachers, and I want to talk about how we can provide the highest level education to the students. I look forward to having that discussion. I've only been on the board for 6 months, and I'm still learning, humbly, I'm still learning the budget. I may never fully understand it. But, you know, I want us to start focusing on how we can change it, how we can have a different discussion, how we can have a discussion about how we can fund the needs, how we can fund, you know, not have to have 4 furlough days, how we can provide a good livable wage for our classified staff, you know, and speak to those issues in the community and not talk about we're cutting furlough days. And because it does frustrate me, and I think we owe it to the community to have a real honest conversation about what we need. We're not immune from everything that's going on in the world. We still pay the same amount for gas and diesel. We still live in a world where healthcare is going up. We're one of the largest employers in the community, and healthcare costs are rising. That has an impact on us, on our education community, on the teachers, everyone. And that frustrates me because, you know, we're talking about even, you know, giving raises, but then at the same token, on the same taking it away with healthcare. And we have absolutely zero control over that, or very, very little control over that. So I'm happy to vote in favor of the budget. I really do appreciate everything that you've done. I appreciate what you've done at the staff level. But when we come back in August, I want to start having some real discussions about how we can address the declining enrollment, how we can address our budget issues, how we can make those investments in our students or continue to make those investments so we're not talking about having to cut again and again and again, because I do think it's important. I do agree with my colleague down at the end of the aisle as well, that these are important positions. So with that said, I don't have any question, but again, I just want to express my appreciation. I know it's a lot of work goes into putting this together, so thank you.
And Mike, as you probably know, Dr. Heller is collecting ideas for study session topics and perhaps retreat topics for next year. So if you haven't submitted that idea to him, you have already.
He has my idea.
All right.
Several
Just
times.
wanted to make sure that had been received if you hadn't done that so far.
Stu, they're having a hard time hearing you in the audience, so if you'll make sure you're speaking into your mic, that would
Okay.
be great.
All right. Lori?
Thank you. I do believe we need to have more of the specifics in there exactly as has been previously asked, and also the continual draw on the reserve. We just have to, I mean, there has to be a stopping point before we come to that point where we can't do it anymore, because we're out of compliance with the requirement on the amount of reserve that we have to have. So we need to be looking at that even more closely. But understanding all of this and going through this and asking questions on the specifics and wanting those specifics in order to do what we're set here to do. We just need more information sometimes, I think, and lots of questions, but without having it specified exactly what's going where on this particular item, we have to have that. We do have that fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers, to the money that we get from the state. Thank you.
All right, Dawn?
I guess one of the things I just want to throw into this mix, and I actually also appreciate the idea that we would talk about these things potentially separate from the line item, right? The numbers themselves, which I would argue is the point I was just making as well, right? I mean, sometimes talking about the philosophy of what we want to do and what goals we want to achieve and make them audacious and amazing and shoot for the moon and then figure out how do we actually practically do it is a great idea. I think you do need to come up for air. This is kind of the exercise in the opposite, which is saying, after all those things you've approved, here's the nuts and the bolts of it. And so I do like the idea of us coming at this to talk about our priorities. And we do, again, without necessarily putting numbers to it. I have heard it said many times in public comment and online that because this is, we're not a business, we're a government entity, people also don't want us to have huge amounts in reserve, right? That's why there's sort of a sweet spot that we must have in order to make sure that we can maintain operations for a certain amount of time. However, if we were sitting on large amounts of money, then we would be taking it from the taxpayers and keeping it. And that obviously is gross. I mean, there's no one who would say that that's what they want from their government. When we collect tax money, we're taking it to invest it in the education of children, which is our charter, which is what we're spending this money on. And I do appreciate that we're having conversations philosophically about how we should better understand this information so that it's easier to digest, right? Because it is a lot of numbers, it is a lot of data, and we often look at it kind of all at once in these few meetings that we have. With that said, I've heard over and over again that there's a philosophical difference between statute, understanding of statute, practice across most districts, including ours, of that understanding of statute, as well as us talking about how we can better do these things with the new database, with staff who is coming at this and understanding it. We knew that there was going to be an adjustment year and that there was just no way that we were going to go from where we were sitting here a year ago to sitting here today, having moved things into the right buckets and understanding them and getting updates on all of that throughout the year without still having, significant changes to make sure that it shows up the way that we all expect it to. We have had a ton of conversations about that, tons of updates about that. This is reflective of that. I guess I'm partially confused as to why when we've talked about and reviewed these things and even voted on some of these things throughout the year, now there's pushback on paying for what we approved. That also just feels gross to me. And I feel like I have to say that because you can't, again, separate the cost of the things that you're approving from what you approved. Unfortunately, it magically won't show up another way. When we approve us to take action on something, to create a program, to fund a program, to approve curriculum, et cetera, it will show up in these numbers. And we have to do our job. And philosophically disagreeing with how it's done has a time and a place. And if it's outside of any of our control as individuals up here, then this isn't the time or the place.
All right, Denise? All right, nor do I. So I think we're ready to proceed then for a motion on item 6.3, approval of resolution of the use of beginning of the fund balance for 2026-2027 budget. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Yes?
I would just like to conclude with this. These things that I bring up are because it's important, and it's important for everybody to understand that the way this process is working, just think about when we do negotiations. We literally are negotiating blind, in my opinion. It's really difficult to negotiate when you don't really know what the final numbers are going to be from the state. You don't have a lot of this information yet, but you're going to enter into a negotiated agreement with the employees. That's really difficult. So I guess then that would mean what? I would need to start voting no on the negotiation because I don't have all of the information ready. Now that we do, which we typically don't get this information, and again, that's more at the fault of the state and how slow they are in getting these financial numbers to every district. But at the end of the day, the board should be more involved so that we can have an understanding of how to set the priorities, because at some point we really have to look at how do we want to re-envision the learning here in Thompson so that we can increase enrollment, because the students are going somewhere else, and we need to figure out how do we take the money that we have so that we can keep them here, bring them back here to Director Scholl's statement. So this is not some philosophical. This is hard numbers. We are drawing down our reserves, and that's an issue that if we don't start making a plan for, will become a problem, especially as we're trying to also figure out how do we stop the kids leaving. It doesn't all happen in a vacuum. It's all happening at once. So I appreciate the conversation. We just need to have more of it sooner and deeper so that the board can really provide clear priorities and direction to the superintendent so that we can make Thompson a great place so that students don't leave.
All right, before we proceed to the vote, I want to respond to a couple things that Nancy said. I believe that the quality of education in Thompson is excellent. I think it has been excellent for decades. I'm one of the people sitting up here who is a product of the Thompson schools. My children are products of the Thompson schools. The decline in enrollment in public schools, we've talked about before, is a national issue. I'm not sure I even want to call it a problem, because some of it is due, a large part of the problem is due to declining birth rate. And so since we're in a process right now of expressing some personal feelings, some thoughts about various aspects of the budget as it relates to education, I wanted to share that as well. With that, I believe we're ready to vote then on 6.3. All right. Laura Lee, would you call the roll, please?
Stu Boyd.
Aye.
Denise Chapman.
Aye.
Lori Goebel.
Nay.
Dawn Kirk.
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem.
Aye.
Nancy Rumfeld.
No.
Mike Scholl.
Aye.
All right, the vote is 5-2, and that motion passes. Bob, before we move on to 6.4, when you began the presentation, you said you were kind of rolling 6.1, point 2, and point 3 together. Before we go to point 4, you've heard a lot of information, you've heard questions, you've heard comments from the board. Is there anything that you need some clarification on from individual board members or the board as a whole in order for you to move to the next step that you feel you need to take?
Thank you. Between my notes and the fact that I can go back and revisit this meeting,
Okay.
we have collected the information and we will gather that. The other thing I will note that I did a quick calculation. This is my 35th municipal or nonprofit budget that I've done in my career. So thank you for approving the budget.
And thank you for continuing to do that. All right, let's move then to 6.4, which is the approval of the 2025-2026 budget adjustment.
Yes, so as discussed during the study session, last year, Zach and I were caught when the auditors said, oh, your expenditures can't be more than your budget, even if your revenue is more than your budget. They don't look at the bottom line, they don't look at the expenses. That's a state law. So this year, we're making sure that we take care of that by doing the para-state contribution that they do to help fund the unfunded liability. We've calculated what we think it's going to be, and that's going to go in the revenue and offsetting the expenses, so there's no impact to the budget. In addition, you previously approved our E-rate Zayo project to do the internet program for all our schools, and we approved that over several years. They're actually doing that faster than expected, so we are taking next year's appropriation and moving it to this year, and next year there will not be an appropriation. So therefore, that's why we're doing that as an adjustment for this year. That'll be transferred over to the capital fund at that part. Those are the two items. And the difference between the study session and now, we have the actual invoice. Instead of an even 400,000, it's 403, the number.
All right. Board, comments or questions for Bob about 6.4? And Nancy, I'll begin with you. Because in the rotation, you're up next, kiddo.
I do, so, because earlier in the year, we had approved on the contracts greater than 50,000 for this contract. So is this for that same amount, or are you saying that this is for the amount that will be spent next year?
It will actually be spent before June 30th, because they're actually doing the work now. But it was originally planned to be in next year's budgets. We did not include it in next year's budget. That's why it's an appropriation for this year.
So was this then the, what we approved on the contracts greater than 50,000 previously?
No, we're doing that separately as part of this instead of doing the 50,000 part.
So do we need to have, should we have been approving this tonight also for contracts greater than 50,000?
You can either do it here or in that. You've often had separate, so for instance, when you did the Monroe School funding, all those items were there. They did not then have to go into the 50,000 part.
So this is taking care of both?
That's correct, as long as there is a board action to do the appropriation.
I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Mike?
I don't have any question, but I just have a quick comment. I want to just clarify, and I want to be clear. None of my comments that I've made tonight, I think, reflect any negative feelings I have towards the quality of education that we provide here locally. My son just graduated, and I'm quite proud of him, and his experience was nothing but positive. And I feel very strongly that as a result of getting his diploma from Loveland High School, he is well prepared to be successful in college and come the fall. And I think that's really important. And what I want to see and continue to see is that we continue to grow that, and we continue to strive and invest in our education so that my grandkids, hopefully at some point in my life, can come back and get the same quality of education that both of my sons did. And so I'll leave it at that. But again, thank you.
All right. Lori? Okay. Dawn? Oh, okay. Denise?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Alexandra?
No.
And I also don't have anything. So I think we're ready to proceed for a motion and a second on item 6.4, approval of the 2025-2026 budget adjustment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, did you get those, Laura Lee? All right. Any more discussion?
I just want to thank you, Bob, for the clarification that it was something that was where the action needed to be, so I appreciate that.
All right. Then let's proceed to the vote. Laura Lee, would you call the roll, please?
Stu Boyd.
Aye.
Denise Chapman.
Aye.
Lori Goebel.
Aye.
Don Kirk.
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem.
Aye.
Nancy Rumpfelt.
Aye.
Mike Scholl.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. We're ready then to move to agenda item 6.5, approval of the second read policy of JICJ, student use of cell phones and other personal technology devices. All right, and we'll proceed through this the way that we have through the others, beginning with, find my rotation list here. Questions or comments, beginning with Mike.
I do not have any questions at this time.
All right. Lori?
I don't believe I have any questions at this time.
All right. Dawn?
Sorry, forgot I had that off. I don't have any questions. Earlier today, when I was looking at it, my eyes started crossing because I had already just looked at budget. And I was like, this feels like I'm missing something. And so I wanted to double check before I voted. And it is right here. Clearly, the one thing that I didn't see earlier is right in front of me. I do very much appreciate two things. One is the edits that have been made since we talked last time, I feel clarify to the best of our ability and policy what I'd like to see, at least as a first step. As I've made clear, I feel as if we're going a different direction than the one I would personally choose, but I feel as if because this is clarified, the groups that need to be considered differently and why from the beginning, and the places when it is appropriate, I think that clarity helps a lot. And so I think we've dialed this in about as much as it was possible to do from where we started. And then I also want to point out that how much I appreciate hearing Sue's public comment clarifying sort of how that form email that there were, I don't know, 4 million of approximately. The difference between maybe on a global level, the idea of this versus at the local level, how have we approached it and how we've talked through it. So it's good to know kind of the difference between the two, because I think there were some points in that email that I was a little shocked by, and so I'm glad to hear otherwise. And then I guess the last thing I'll say about this is that this is one of those policies that I have a sense will be revised fairly quickly. I looked earlier today at something not related to something in the board packet, and the last time it was revised was like barely in the 2000s. I know we have some stuff that has been here as long as I have been on the planet. This clearly can't be one of those things because it's technology, and this technology has changed since we started the conversation about the technology. And so we know that we're going to have to revisit this. I would really hope that we could revisit it with data from the stakeholders, probably at the mid-year mark, so that we can course correct. And we don't need to wait that long either. Just because we made this up and we think it's good, if we find that we need to course correct much sooner, we figure out how to do that. as we should with anything. But I think it's important to say it with a new policy. We're making a big change, and I think that if we're able to adapt to the practicalities of putting out a policy so that our policy reflects actual practice and that they're not two different things, I think that's ideal. And so I really do appreciate you taking in the wide array of feedback and trying to make sense of it. And you did, and I appreciate it. And I hope that that translates into something that addresses so many of the needs from the people that we've heard from. Thank you.
All right. Denise?
Thank you. This has been a sticky one, and I think we've gotten to a good place. But the reality is that no matter how good your policy is, it's the implementation. It's how you support the staff as they are, charged with this different direction. We have cell phone policies in every building. I love having a consistent one for our, our community or our, because it does bring clarity in why is it this way there or that way there. But this is just the first step. It's the rolling it out. It's the reinforcing it. It's actually doing what we say we're going to do when things happen. And so that's, a lot of people's work come fall. And hopefully we're working over the summer to really support them, train them, and put in place, real teeth to this.
All right. Alexandra?
I agree. I mean, we've seen a lot of iterations of this policy, and I feel good with where we are as well. I think my biggest concern is the middle school, I think, is going to be rough. And so I think it's, sort of to Denise's point, but also I think it's so very, very, very important that working with middle school students and families so that they really understand and are on board with this as much as possible. I think some middle school families and kids are going to be blindsided by this. And so I think it's important to communicate early and often and in many different ways and so on and so forth to help make that transition as easy as possible. But I think it's reasonable. I think there's, room. I mean, I agree. I think we'll probably see some things that we're like, ooh, maybe that shouldn't have been that way. But so I think, also important to revisit it and see how things are going with the data, with the feedback from the schools, from the administrators, from the students, from the families, from sort of all the stakeholders as this goes on.
Nancy?
I think this cell phone policy is a great example of what happens when we're all allowed to have differing views and differing positions, and it changes and then it changes again. I think this is a great example of that's how you create a product that's really good, that will serve the needs of this district. I'm really on board with this new policy. I think it does a lot of good. Especially what helped was Director Scholl sent out a video on a cell phone study, and I watched it, and it was awesome. It was good. I was surprised to learn about the academic part, but what I really liked learning about was that what the study shows is that the well-being of the students is what actually improves. And I think that, to me, is very significant, especially as we see all the different rise of the different issues happening right now with students. And so I think with elementary and middle school, it's a good, solid policy. I agree with the high school that because they're already getting jobs and they're going to have to start learning how to go in to the real world. And so I think this is a really good policy that's come out of us all allowing ourselves to disagree and come up with different ideas, and we have this. So thank you.
All right, and so I'll conclude.
Point of clarification.
Sure.
You had asked if we had any questions. I didn't realize this was going to be the comment section. Are we going to have another opportunity to comment later?
Yes, yes. For information for folks who are in the room and people who will be watching this or who are watching it now or will be watching it later, I submitted a request for information to high school principals based on this particular policy, particularly the instructional part and the non-instructional part. And the principals offered us some very valuable feedback. And so based on the feedback that they offered, I'm going to introduce 2 amendments. In essence, I agree with my colleagues that this is a good starting place. I think we can modify this good starting place slightly by incorporating 2 amendments into this. And so I will be proposing those in just a second. The first change that I'm going to suggest, and again, both of these are based on comments and suggestions from current Thompson School District principals, is in regard to item number, I don't think I have the number here, adding, yes I do, in number 3 under instructional time, adding the words including entertainment, and then also adding a 4th point under instructional time. Students will be asked to give their PTD to the teacher when requesting a pass to leave the room. I discovered in my research getting ready for this meeting that as the president, because we are a small body, we have fewer than 12 people, that the president actually can make a motion. And so I am going to make a motion and we will discuss these 2 possible amendments. I'm going to move to amend the policy by adding the words including entertainment to the 3rd point. If I get a second, I'll explain the rationale for the amendment.
I'll second.
All right. So the rationale for the amendment comes from a principal from within the district. When the principals contributed their feedback, they were not identified by name, and I don't think it's important that that would have happened, so I don't know which principal this was. But one of the principals mentioned that he felt, and based on his years of experience or her years of experience, that listening to music could certainly be a distraction. I remember too an email that the board received fairly early on from a teacher in Loveland who talked about in her classroom inappropriate or distracting content that was going on that actually interfered with learning. And I had mentioned to my board colleagues at one point that after I retired from my regular job as a teacher in the Thompson School District, I did some subbing, and I remember one particular instance where I was subbing in one of the district high schools. Kids were supposed to be working on something quietly at their seats, and all of a sudden this young man just busted out in laughter. Everybody turned and looked to him, and he started showing his cell phone to students who were sitting close to him. And I said, what's going on back there? And he said, well, come on back, I want to show this to you. And I thought, okay. So I walked back there, and what he was watching, yes, it was funny, but it was very inappropriate, and it was during time that kids were supposed to be studying. And so based on the principal's suggestion, this other teacher's comment, and my own personal experience, I think we can enhance that 3rd point by adding the words including entertainment. And so with that, the next part of the process is, and without going down the line, if board members have thoughts in regard to my motion to amend, rather than going down the line. If you have something that you'd like to say, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Nancy, or pardon me, Lori, I mean.
I understand the filtering that out, but I think then you would open it up to having to list every non-instructional purpose. I think not having it in there, I think is, the way it's worded is very good. For any non-instructional purpose is prohibited during class time. That includes entertainment without saying. So I guess to me, it seems a little bit redundant. And by putting that in there, I think you would then end up needing to list every single other non-instructional purpose. So I think just the way it is, if it's non-instructional, it's prohibited, period. But I appreciate the thoughtfulness that you had going to the principals and asking about that.
All right, any other comments? All right, so a motion has been made and seconded. So Laura Lee, will you call the roll, please? And again, what you're voting on is just adding the words including entertainment. That's all that we're voting on. We're not voting on any larger part of the motion.
Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Nay.
Don Kirk,
Nay.
Alexander Lessem,
Aye.
Nancy Rumfelt,
Nay.
Mike Scholl.
Aye.
Oh, did I forget you, Lori? Sorry.
All right.
Lori, hang on, sorry, I forgot Lori. Lori, go.
Nay.
Sorry.
All right, if I counted correctly, the motion failed 4-3. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Let me go ahead then and make my next motion, which is to add a new point, which will be number 4. Also in the instructional section, students will be asked to give their PTD to the teacher when requesting a pass to leave the room. If I get a second, I'll explain the rationale for that amendment. Okay. The background or the support for this particular one comes again from one of the district principals who said that their impression was that in order to forestall a ruse of a student asking for a restroom pass, for example, but not actually needing to go to the restroom or some other destination, but actually wanting to use the phone for a purpose not allowed in the policy, that comment from a district administrator rang my bell, and I think it's a reasonable request that when a student leaves a particular classroom, that the student would be asked to turn in the cell phone. Notice that the wording is not required, but would be asked to hand in the cell phone. All right, so the motion has been made and seconded. I'll open this discussion also in the same way. If you'd like to say something about this, feel free to do that, Mike.
Thank you for that explanation and rationale. I have to. My inclination is to vote against it respectfully, and here's why. I think while I understand and appreciate the intent, this is moving away from policy and into implementation. And I think when we talk about when we're kind of legislating what the teachers need to do in the classroom, that to me kind of crosses that line into the implementation side, which I would kind of direct over to Dr. Heller and in his effort and how they manage the use of PTDs, during non-instructional time. And I think that's going to be one of the challenges, and I've spoken with Dr. Heller about this at length, and I understand that we will be revisiting this. I think I I don't think it'll be 6 months. I think it'll be probably over the course of 3 years or 4. As long as I'm on the board, I imagine this will continue to come up, which it should. But I believe my concern is that this is, it's on the, kind of falls on the implementation side of the ledger, not the policy side. And that's kind of what I struggle with. So thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Go ahead.
Again, while I appreciate, the effort that you put into this, my concern with this one is it feels like we're going to start policing how they use it in the restroom, and it just seems a little bit much. But also my larger concern is we have to trust them that they're going to keep it turned off. If they don't, they don't while they're in the restroom. But also while they're in the restroom, if we take away that phone, and God forbid something happens during the school, they will have no phone with them, and that is my big concern with what you're saying. There's also the side of asking the teachers, you want to go to the restroom, you need to give me your phone. But that's my biggest concern, is if something were to go on in the school, they would have no communication tool with them, and that's why I don't think I can support this amendment.
All right.
I'd like to add, I think back to one of the challenges, one of the versions of this had, which was the storage and the et cetera, the liability we take on by taking somebody's $1,000 device and holding it and then saying that we're sure that it's going to go back to them in the same shape is already something that concerns me a lot, to be honest with you. And so to increase the amount of back and forth in those things increases our obligation and liability for something to go wrong, or for somebody to even say that something went wrong with a very large price tag to it. Also, in most social situations, if you can't take the call in the room, the first thing you do is step out. And when I'm gonna be frank that I think that when a kid says they need a break, they need a break. And that sometimes is to go get water, and sometimes it's to go to the bathroom, and sometimes it's because my phone has been buzzing. And that means that something's going on and I need to check on it because I can't concentrate anyway. That happens to us as adults. That will happen to our kids, even if we try not to. And so one of the things that we teach them to be functional in spaces is to take it in a place where it's most appropriate, and that would be the hallway. Additionally, this starts to get into that territory where I have a problem with the policy as a whole, which is that we have such a big, vast variety of how people think about technology. And there have been multiple instances where people have came to me because they were told not to use their device because somebody was policing that you weren't using it right, but they were using it in a way that was backed up by IDEA in their IEP, and I'm getting the call anyway. It went so far as to get to a board member because on all the back and forth, even though there's a legal document that we could reference to get this information, it had to come to a board member first. And so I'm concerned about overall the fact that we're policing how people are using these devices. And then the other thing that I think is important to say in this that I'm relying on is that we have given an incredible amount of authority to a principal. And the authority to work through these things is a big part of their job. I think one of the things that concerned me about the volume of emails that we got asking for a bell-to-bell policy and a blanket policy reflects that there has been a challenge in the implementation of the policies that already exist. And so I will put this in a positive way, which is that we have given authority to the principals to enact the policies, to back them up, to make sure that they're not just pieces of paper that we make up for our own enjoyment up here, but they're really put into practice. And that was true before we wrote this. It was true when we asked them to write their own policies and we backed them up to do that. And so if we have a concern about how we're doing it today, I am practiced before we put this into place. I'm concerned that we're going to have some of those things as well here, because if a principal doesn't know that they have the authority to do that already, that's the issue, not the policy. So I want to make sure we're saying that, because there's lots of things that are going to be about day in and day out decisions for this. The sense that staff didn't feel like there was consistency or clarity in how they did it is definitely something we want to think about with that rollout, to make sure that whatever they're needing that way, we are getting that done beforehand, because that's a big deal.
All right. Let me just respond to the first part of what you said. I believe the intent of the principal's comment in regard to having the student hand in the phone was that the phone would stay on top of the desk until the student came back into the room. So it wasn't a case of it going into a drawer or a pocket or something like that. The other thing I would say is that I introduced both of these amendments in response, I think, to the many emails that we received from members of the community. Yes, some of them were form letters, but many of them weren't form letters, who believe that the policy that we're looking at tonight isn't restrictive enough, and I don't mean restrictive in a negative sense, and that these two amendments actually made the policy perhaps a little more restrictive and a little bit more agreeable to those people. And I'm not, Dawn, I'm not arguing at all with what you said. I just thought I would offer that as rationale. Any other comments before we vote? All right, so we have a motion and a second. Laura Lee, would you call the roll then? And this is on introducing a new statement into the instructional part of the policy. Students will be asked to give their PTD to the teacher when requesting a pass to leave the room.
Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
No.
Lori Goebel,
Nay.
Don Kirk,
No.
Alexandra Lessem,
Nay.
Nancy Rumfelt,
Nay.
Mike Scholl.
No.
All right, that motion failed on a vote of 6-1. We will move now then to voting on the main motion. And help me here, folks. Do we actually have a statement of the main motion?
We have not had a motion yet made.
Pardon me?
We have not had a motion to approve the policy yet.
All right. So I would entertain a motion. Thank you, Dr. Heller. I'd entertain a motion then to approve the policy as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, did you get that, Laura Lee? Yes? Okay. Any further discussion?
I just have one quick comment, if it's
Yeah.
okay. So I do want to just kind of reflect on what Director Rumfelt said too, that I really do appreciate the iterative process that, with the board to put it together, and the leadership, Dr. Heller, that you provided in kind of guiding some of those discussions. I will say, one of the challenges when I kind of look into the future, we're moving into a policy that's more, or we're moving into an environment which will demand more restrictive use of devices in classrooms. I think it's somewhat inevitable. And I think one of the comments, I know we had received a number of emails, some of them were not, through organized, but there was one comment that stood out to me, which I really did appreciate, and somebody said, I really wish we could put together a policy that other districts will copy, that we could kind of be in the lead. And I kind of hope we're kind of getting there with this. I am an optimist. But I do think that, regardless of you know, regardless of where we land or how the vote comes out, I think moving forward, I think the winds of change, I think, are moving. I think state legislatures are moving to restrict cell phones. I think the state legislature in Colorado did. The Denver School District voted, I think, a very restrictive bell-to-bell policy. And it wouldn't surprise me if in the next few years that we have additional mandates from the state legislature on this. So I do think it's a good start. I appreciate that the work you've done and the intent that, you know, the board put forward. And so with that, I will end my comments, but thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Lori?
The one thing I do come back to is, this is from the executive summary. Quote was, establishing a clear district-wide policy. And in number 2, it said establishing district-wide expectations. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who did weigh in, because there were a lot of very concerned parents, a lot of very concerned tax-paying citizens who did weigh in on this, and truly appreciated the personal comments and the stories. And very true, the thing is, we are not the parents. So having the policy the way it is with different things in different schools, that does have me concerned. I think it should be district-wide. As we've discussed before, there is nothing that requires a cell phone in a classroom. Not saying they can't have them with, have them off, but having the bell-to-bell policy district-wide, that was one of the things that I did run on when I ran my campaign. And just for a little bit of humor, just have a little meme here. It highlights how the modern classroom distractions pull students away from the original purpose of education. And it shows students with rotary phones on every one of their desks, along with handsets, because it does take away, you know, if it is during that lunchtime and if it is during a passing period, even in the high school, for them to come back to a place of learning. There are so many interruptions right now and things that are going to distract. And back to what we're saying too, is helping the students make those connections with other students. We're looking after their mental health, their well-being overall. And I think that is, you know, we need to look at that as well. And there is, like I stated before, there's nothing that requires them to have a phone for instructional time, because they do have their Chromebooks. And I want to go back to what President Boyd said at a previous study session. It's always easier to loosen regulations rather than tighten them up. I mean, and I know this is going to be a huge process. And I do appreciate the work that he did as far as contacting the charter schools, you know, that they do have bell-to-bell policies in place. You reported that earlier. Could that be one of the reasons that one of the many reasons that people are choosing elsewhere for education, or part of that equation, so to speak? And I think one thing we do need to make sure that we highlight is on page 6, it says students bring these devices to school at their own risk. And I think the more that is emphasized and communicated, emails, you know, banners behind airplanes, I don't know. But that is, students are bringing their phones or whatever device it is to school at their own risk. Once again, decreasing that liability for the district, but letting them know that it's up to them. So, like I said, I mean, I was always putting, you know, learning over likes and focusing on the learning and getting rid of the distractions. So I was having a district-wide policy, I think, is where it needs to come back to.
All right. Any other comments before we vote? All right, we have a motion and a second. Laura Lee, would you call the roll, please?
Stu Boyd.
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Aye.
Lori Goble,
Nay.
Don Kirk,
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem,
Aye.
Nancy Rumfeld,
Aye.
Mike Scholl.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes on a vote of 6-1. Thank you. And I will say that working on these amendments gave me an opportunity to better understand parliamentary procedure. I actually did some research on what needs to come first and how things actually fit into the progression, and I have notes. And so down the road, when we have something else that is amendable and so on, during the period of time that I'm the presiding person, I think I'll have a better idea of how this works. So thank you, Board. All right. So,
5 minutes.
I'm sorry, Mike, did you say something?
We do a quick bathroom.
Sure, absolutely.
Or could I?
We have been meeting now for about 2 hours. How about a 7-minute break?
I'll take 5.
7 is my favorite number, so. into session. It's 8:07. We'll move now to agenda item 6.6, which is the approval of the 2026-27 early childhood school calendar variants.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Heller, Tiffany Rogers, Chief Human Resources Officer. I'm coming this evening. I discussed this at the board study session that with the addition of the furlough days into the school academic calendar, we did need to put back an instructional day into the early childhood program in order to meet our Head Start program requirements. Lamb was not able to be here this evening, and so just wanted to discuss, he did go through a site-based decision-making model with his team, and they have put back in the September 8th. It was already a teacher work day already, but we will have student contact that day.
All right.
And so that's the request for a different calendar for early childhood for this particular school year.
All right. Lori? Rotation moves to you for the first comment or question on this one.
No questions.
Okay, Dawn?
It looks like I thought it was going to look, so we're good. And it has a cute little koala, so
Yeah.
extra
We
points
can
for that.
thank Matt Beal for that. He put the cute koala on there.
Adorable.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Denise? Alexandra?
No.
Nancy?
No. No.
Mike? And I don't either. So I'd entertain a motion then to approve the early childhood school calendar variants.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Laura Lee, would you call the roll?
Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Aye.
Lori Goble,
Aye.
Don Kirk,
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem,
Aye.
Nancy Rumpfelt,
Aye.
Mike Scholl.
All right, and that motion passes 7-0. Just a second, let me make a note on something else here. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our new agenda item 6.7 related to the Turner land deal. Nancy, since you asked that it be pulled, I'm going to begin the conversation with you.
I pulled it simply because this project with the city of Berthoud, from what I understand, is on hold. So I don't understand why we feel compelled to sell it to them. I also don't understand why we're going to sell it to them at such a loss. I understand the restrictions, but the restrictions do say that somebody can, we could sell it to somebody who wanted to do a recreation center, amphitheater, athletic field, playgrounds, tennis, basketball courts, skate park, water feature, community garden. I mean, there's many different uses, so it's not like it can't be used for anything. We originally purchased it at $38,096 per acre, and I just don't think it's being a good steward of taxpayer money to sell it for such a loss, and I will not support this. I will not support this sale.
All right. Dawn?
I believe all of that was addressed in the questions we asked when we reviewed it last time. So I don't think that any of that's unclear. It's just really a matter of the individual board member's decision about the facts that have been presented to us. Like, this isn't asking for new information as far as I can hear. Is that correct?
No, I'm not asking for new information. I'm simply stating my position on the sale of this real estate property.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was the case. Thank you.
Okay. Denise?
I have what I need to make a decision.
All right. Alexandra?
Oh, it's fine. We'll say that, Nancy, I think you weren't at the study session when they did talk about the project is kind of back in process. It was on hold, but now they're moving more towards it again.
That's fine. We're still selling the property at a
No, I
loss.
get that. I get that.
Okay. Mike?
Just a couple
Thanks for that. I've had some concern about it, but I'm happy to support it. And just a couple things related to that, one of which is we did ask to put a reverter clause into the contract. So if it doesn't get used in the way that the town intends, it will revert, or we have the option of it reverting back to the school district. The second thing is I think it's not entirely accurate to say that we're selling this at a loss. When we buy a chunk of property, we use a part of it for a purpose, and then there's a surplus property, there's a portion of the property that's left over and that we're not using it, that's not developable in any meaningful way beyond even the deed restrictions that we have. So that affects value. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. So I kind of think that that's a little bit of a misstatement, or at least I don't think that's completely accurate to say that we're selling it at a loss. We're selling the portion of the property that we're not using that can't be developed in any meaningful way. So I understand that some of the comments around it, but with that said, and after kind of hearing kind of what the approach that we're taking, I'm content. I'm happy to support this.
All right, Lori?
Yeah, I don't see how we can call this being fiscally responsible. When we paid what we paid for that land, and now selling it less than half of what we paid for it, was the option. I did bring up leasing it back to the city so that we could keep the dollar amount on the books as part of our assets, and then, the town of Berthoud, leasing it back to the town, that they would maintain it, they would improve it, and I don't know that we ever received an answer to that. I mean, that was something that I brought up during the study session. That way it's a win for us. We're able to keep that asset on the books. We're not selling it at a huge loss. And, when you purchase something and then you're selling it less than half of what selling it, I mean, that, to me, if we were at least getting what we paid for it, I mean, because for them, for the town, I mean, it's the same amount of land is still there, and the fact that it was negotiated apparently down to such a discounted price, and I'll respectfully disagree with Director Scholl, because it was the same restrictions were on there. Even though we didn't use it all, had the track been orientated differently, or I don't know if that was feasible or not, to do it that way. But do we have a response on leasing it back to the city?
Kristen Batigi is here to talk about it. I will say that based on the conversations at the study session, I didn't get a perception or a sense that from the board there was a strong desire to move towards the leasing direction. So we didn't necessarily pursue that in earnest, because I didn't get a sense that the will of the board was to lead that direction. So we continued with the pursuit of the sale that we had been discussing. And based on my individual conversation with board members kind of leading up to over the last month or more, that there was generally support to move forward with this approach. But Kristen, feel free to add any conversations there.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Heller. Kristen Batigi, Director of Operations. That is certainly an option. And if the board directs us to do that, we can look into that. Selling, leasing, leaving it the same. It's really the direction of the board.
All right. Do you want to comment, and then I'll finish discussion on this?
I think with that information, I just thought, since it was brought up, that it would be something that would be at least, have gotten a response to or gotten more information on. I'll just be, I guess, a little more clear on that going forward. But with that bit of knowledge, I believe we should maybe change a little bit of direction here and have that, the lease option pursued, so that we can, once again, if we have an asset on the books, because it is listed at that $38,000 an acre, why not keep it instead of taking such a huge loss on it? And then it would be a win for the city, because if we lease it back to them, for the Arboretum or whatever they're doing with that, the town of Berthoud, that I think that would be a win for us. We retain the asset. They're able to have that addition. We're able to have some beautiful property around the track area there, and another place of learning.
All right. Let me comment on this. I'm very familiar with this piece of land. It's located about 2 blocks from where I live. When I run around the track at Turner Middle School or walk in that area, I'm very familiar with that. I don't know that there's any access currently to this particular parcel of land, so there would be cost involved, whether it would be leased or kept by us or revert back to the town of Berthoud. Also, I know from having read several accounts in the Berthoud Surveyor that the intention is to turn this land into an arboretum. We have a very good cooperative arrangement with the town of Berthoud. There's no doubt in my mind that at the point that this arboretum, and they haven't established a completion date, but it is part of their master plan, that at the point that it's completed, that students at Turner Middle School would be able to use it. And board will notice that Kristen is nodding her head, so I think what I'm saying is information she's familiar with as well. It also is within walking distance of the other 3 schools in Berthoud. I think that turning this back to the town with the understanding or with the belief that this will ultimately benefit our students in some way, shape, or form. And also, as I said at the beginning, I don't think there's any access to this piece of land. And so it would be, I think, a difficult transaction to try to support. So, Kristen, do you want to respond to what I said?
Yeah, just correct on the access. The access would be through the town of Berthoud property or school district property for that.
Right.
Yep. And yes, Turner Middle School would be able to use the Arboretum. We've had conversations with the town of Berthoud, with Adam, the principal at Turner as well, of kind of the opportunities.
Okay. Board, I think we're ready to proceed to the vote.
Actually, I do
Yes, go
have
ahead.
a thing I'd like to add. It's in the Wayback Machine, but you seem to have a much better memory than I do. There was a point when this was presented to me, if not presented to the board, if it may have been just conversationally or as part of something else way back. There was a time when we were gonna just kind of give the land. Like, we were gonna support, like, yep, here's an arboretum and it's on our land and you're using it. That was how we were planning to do it at one point. I don't know how official that was, but that was part of it. And so I guess I look at all this discussion around the loss of that, and first off, we're saying that the use of the land has no value in that equation, which isn't true. Because the plan for the use of the land does add value to our district that we've agreed over time we would like to have our community have access to and our students have access to. Additionally, I think given the scenario where we were gonna just give it away and now we're being offered money for it, that's a considerable win. Because we did use the land that we bought to do what we intended to do. We just did it in a way that didn't use all the land. So for me, like, this is sort of a no-brainer because nobody else is asking us for the land. And I doubt that the town of Berthoud's board is going to come back and say, we'll pay you more. And even leasing, we keep an asset on the books when we've been talking about selling our assets. We actually have a buyer for this asset. So I don't know what the problem is. I really don't understand, except for that we're thumping our chests.
Let me just kind of key off something that you just said. Have been trying to imagine who would lease this piece of land. I can't imagine who would lease the piece of land. So that's just a personal opinion. I think we're ready to vote. Go ahead.
When I did bring this up as far as the lease option was, lease it to them for $1 a year, just very inexpensively because they are the ones doing the improvements. We can still have the benefit of the use of it, with a great working relationship with the town of Berthoud. And, if they're putting in that arboretum and it extends to that property, like I said, I think by keeping that asset that it would bode much better than having a huge financial loss in a full out-and-out sale.
Financial loss.
Correct.
I'm sorry, but I just really resent that implication that somehow we're selling it at a loss. We are not. We purchased the property for a price and we used it for a specific purpose. We built a track that's been used by the middle school and used by the district and used by people in the community, including our board president, who apparently runs there occasionally. And it's provided value. So what we are selling off is the surplus land that's not usable. So you suggest that it really bothers me that you're accusing the board of being fiscally irresponsible, and it's simply not true. It's even if we were to lease the land, it has no value. It has no value because it's deed restricted and it's also not developable. The only way that land is developable is if you combine it with the rest of the land that's already in the pink, the land that's owned by the town. It would be a great piece of land to develop, but the town and the donors and the people that own that land are deciding to use it for public purpose. So I really get frustrated when you say that because it is just factually wrong. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Let's,
Director Scholl, I appreciate your frustration. I think it's a little bit out of line. We look at it as we bought it at $38,000 an acre. We're selling it for $15,000. I don't think that anyone's saying we're accusing anyone. It's just simply looking at things a different way. I appreciate your perspective, and I have mine, and so I think we just need to move forward and vote, and we have our differences.
Yes. Closing comment, Lori, and then we do need to vote on this.
That was not out of any disrespect. By keeping the asset on the books, when you say there's no value to the land, I believe there's a value to the land by maintaining it on our assets, listed as an asset at the value that we paid for it. And then, once again, you say no one's interested in leasing it, but, working cooperatively with the town of Berthoud, I believe that if we would at least look at that, or have the option to look at it and explore this option to see if it is something that is feasible, if the city would be willing to move forward with it.
All right. And with that, let's go ahead and proceed to the vote. Laura, would you call the roll, please?
I need a motion first.
We need a motion.
I move that we sell this land.
Second.
Before we go any further, is that a specific enough motion, Dr. Heller?
As long as the board knows what they're voting for, then it's specific
All
enough
right.
for me.
Board, are you fine with that? Understand what it is that we're voting for? All right. And do we have a second?
I second.
All right. Thank you, Denise. All right, let's vote.
Stu Boyd.
Aye.
Denise Chapman.
Aye.
Lori Goebel.
Nay.
Don Kirk.
Aye.
Alexandra Lessem.
Aye.
Nancy Rumfelt.
Nay.
Mike Scholl.
Aye.
Right? That motion passes 5-2. We're going to move then to what was one of the action consent items, the one dealing with extra duty pay. And it is now item 6.8. And Lori, I think you're the one who asked that we pull this. Am I right? And so I'll ask you to start the discussion on this.
I just wanted to make, the reason I pulled it is out of clarification. It was brought to my attention that one of the personnel that was listed on here for leaving, it was listed as resignation. And in speaking with the individual, that it was not, this person did not resign. And so just knowing the details, and I don't want to share the details because that is that person's story to tell and not mine. And it'd be hearsay if I did. But just the information that I received, knowing that it was not a resignation, I can't in good conscience vote yes on an item if I know there's something that's not factual in it. So I guess, are there others that might not be
So I can address
how
that.
they're presented?
Tiffany Rogers, Chief Human Resources Officer. With regard to that, without knowing the individual, I can't state whether or not it was a resignation or not. I'm happy if you would like to share that with me outside of here. I can look into that. I can't always guarantee that there could not be possibly a clerical error of some kind. But yeah, to my knowledge, I do not know of anyone on this list that was incorrect.
Dr. Heller, I'd appreciate some direction here in terms of how we handle this.
Can I actually just ask a question? Because I look at this packet and it says separation/resign, meaning everybody who leaves the district except for retirements. That's a general use of the two terms slash mean that regardless of whether the person made the decision or the district made the decision, unless they're retiring, this covers everyone. That's what those words mean in HR world.
So
Am I wrong?
I guess for some clarification, and this is just one of those things that's a request that I've made in the past, and is ideally, if there's something like this that you notice in the consent agenda, reaching out ahead of time so that I can look into specifically what the concern is. Was there a clerical error? Was there an issue within that document, so that we can make sure either we fix it so that it can remain in the consent agenda, or at least we can address the concern individually, not in a public meeting. That would obviously help us to avoid these types of things. It is certainly not appropriate for us to talk about a specific individual at this moment. We can look into the specifics that you're concerned about. I also understand that if you have any concern that there might be something incorrect on the document, that you might need to vote no as a board member, and that is certainly your prerogative to do so.
So is it your impression then, or is it your advice that we proceed with this?
That would, yes.
Keeping in mind that the concern was raised? Go ahead, Lori.
I will say after the fact, if I'm able to get some information from Director Goebel that there was a mistake, we can always correct that in the future and make sure that we're correcting that for the future.
And once again, I mean, it could have been a miscommunication. It could have been a clerical error. Just knowing that there's information that, from what I understand at this moment in time, that there's something that is not correct, and that there are actually there's the separation/resign, there's just resignation, there's non-renew, there is retirement. So there are several different, and this is one of the ones that was just a resignation. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So board, are you comfortable with just proceeding with the vote? Everyone? Okay.
Actually, I guess I am confused because I'm looking at the packet and there is no one on here that just, oh, sorry, the other page. Got you. Okay. Okay.
All right.
I move that we approve personnel extra duty and coaching recommendations.
And that is now item 6.8 in action discussion. Okay?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And I would just like to say, just because, I think it's doing our due diligence that if we notice something that is not correct, and I want to apologize to Dr. Heller, because this is something that I found out like at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So with that, that is the reason I will be voting no on this, just knowing that there is a possible error on here, or there's an error as far as I'm concerned at this moment in time. Thank you.
All right. Laura Lee, would you call the roll, please?
Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Aye.
Lori Goebel,
Nay.
Don Kirk,
Aye.
Alexander Lessem,
Aye.
Nancy Rumpelt,
Aye.
Mike Scholl.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes 6-1. I believe we're moving now to, thank you, to agenda item 7, which is discussion items, and there are no discussion items. We'll move then to number 8, board communication. Let me read this brief explanation for those who are here in the boardroom with us and those who either are watching or will be watching at another time. Each member of the board has the opportunity to report on events or to communicate with other board members and the community. And I think we'll start with Alexandra.
So I didn't have anything prepared. We've had a lot of talk this evening about money and costs and thinking about and priorities of education and the importance of education and different parts of that and so on and so forth. And I think there's a lot of nuance to it. With the cost, we know there are fixed costs and variable costs. There are indirect costs and direct costs. And then with educating students, there is, again, direct instruction and then all the indirect stuff that goes along with it. With making deals with towns, there is the actual cost or the money that's coming from it and the goodwill that comes from working with our community partners and making agreements that work for both of us. And so I think it's sort of a lot to think about. I think we all need to sort of, keep in mind why we're here, and all of us, we're here for the students, we're here to educate the students, and that absolutely means the education. It also absolutely means the social skills and the learning how to use their devices and learning how to interact with others and learning how to, make decisions with each other and disagree and work together. And so I just think that's been sort of enlightening today. There's very concrete things we need to deal with, and there's very nebulous things that we need to deal with, and both are equally important. And that's just my reflection on our discussion tonight.
All right, thank you. Nancy?
It was brought to my attention and I was asked, and so what I'd like to use my time is to recognize a very special young woman, Autumn, and if I mispronounced the last name, I'm really sorry. Autumn Mihaly, Mihaly. She is going to be representing Colorado in the Special Olympics USA, and she's going to Minneapolis, and she's one of 2 Colorado gymnasts that will be there at the Special Olympics. She has been working on this she started in 2020 when she was 13. Her aunt was a gymnast coach, gave her a gymnast bar, and she's been practicing ever since. COVID kind of interrupted her journey on this. And so I just think it's really special that we have a student here in the district who is going to represent Thompson School District in the Special Olympics. And, it's things like this that I think why we're all here and why we're doing this, and why some in the audience that I see, I know, fight so hard for some of these students. And it isn't, it's the end of the year. I know we didn't do the awards. And so I just wanted to make sure that Autumn received into the public record the recognition that I believe she deserves going to the Special Olympics. So that's my report.
Mike?
Thank you. I just have a quick statement. Since we're not having any meeting in July, I wanted to take a moment to reflect. Oh, excuse me. As soon as my computer just. Sorry about that. It goes dead on me as soon as I.
You want me to come back?
Yes, please.
All right. Lori?
Thank you, President Boyd. Thank you, President Boyd. I would just like to reflect on some events here recently. So to my fellow board members, Dr. Heller, staff, and fellow citizens. On Sunday, we honored Flag Day, and now we look ahead with grateful hearts to two landmark anniversaries: America's 250th birthday on July 4th and Colorado's 150th on August 1st. These milestones remind us that the enduring blessings of liberty that our founders secured through courage, faith, and unwavering commitment of self-governance. On June 4th, 1777, the Continental Congress adopted the Stars and Stripes as a symbol of a bold new experiment in human freedom. The flag has flown over battlefields where liberty was defended, classrooms where young minds were shaped, and communities where faith and family built a great nation. It calls us to remember that our rights come not from government, but from our Creator, as the Declaration so clearly states. As a school board, we stand in a noble tradition. The founders and early American leaders established public education so that children could read, especially the Bible, and understand the principles of virtue, morality, and self-government essential to preserving a free republic. We carry that torch today, preparing the next generation to cherish these blessings. This July, our nation celebrates 250 years since those brave patriots pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to independence. And on August 1st, Colorado marks 150 years of statehood, built by pioneers who embodied the American spirit of opportunity, hard work, and reverence for God. A little-known fact, Colorado earned its nickname, the Centennial State, by joining the Union exactly 100 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, tying our state's birth directly to the heart of America's founding promise. Let us now reflect on the vision that guided our state, the preamble to the Colorado Constitution. We, the people of Colorado, with profound reverence for the supreme ruler of the universe, in order to form a more independent and perfect government, establish justice, ensure tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the state of Colorado. These words echo the timeless truths of our national founding: reverence for God, justice, liberty, and posterity. They call us to steward our schools with the same spirit, teaching truth, honoring our heritage, and equipping students to live as responsible free citizens. As we celebrate these anniversaries, let us renew our commitment to the principles that made America and Colorado exceptional. May our flag continue to wave over a land where faith, family, and freedom flourish for generations to come. God bless you, God bless our schools, and God bless the United States of America and the great state of Colorado.
All right. Mike, are you working?
Try again. Thank you for that. I just have a quick statement. So, since we're not having any meetings in July, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on the upcoming 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Even though we are in a period of great conflict and division, I remain optimistic about our nation and our democracy. I believe that because when I read the Declaration of Independence, I recognize the extraordinary foresight and courage of our founders. When Thomas Jefferson drafted the document in 1776, he understood that America was breaking free from more than just a king. The signers of that document were rejecting an entire system of authority built upon inherited privilege and the belief that political power was granted by God to a ruler. King George believed in the divine right of kings. Like many monarchs before him, he viewed the authority as ordained by God and beyond the challenge of ordinary people. In defending his actions, he appealed not only to the political authority, but also to religious authority. How then could a group of colonists claim the right to oppose a king who believed his power came directly from God? Jefferson's answer was revolutionary. He wrote that all people are created equal and all are endowed with certain unalienable rights, In those few words, he shifted the source of political authority away from kings, churches, and inherited status and placed it in the hands of people. That idea remains radical even today, that no one, no person, no church, no political leader possesses a divine right to rule over others. Simply put, government derives its legitimacy from the consent of the governed, not from any religious authority. That principle became the foundation of religious liberty and the separation of church and state. Our founders understood that faith is strongest when it is freely chosen, and that government works best when it serves all citizens equal, regardless of their religious beliefs. As we approach the 250th anniversary, I believe it's worth remembering that our democracy was built on the conviction that freedom belongs to the people, not to kings, and not to those claiming authority on God's behalf. That idea has carried our nation through moments of crisis before, and I am confident it will continue to do so for generations to come. Thank you, and have a great 4th of July holiday.
Dawn? No? Denise?
Just wanted to reflect on our, graduation days. I mean, we all spent hours at the Budweiser Event Center, and also at Berthoud, and then at Mountain View with the Ferguson crew. And it was just so much joy each of those kids and their families had, walking the stage and, the shouts and the illegal streamers or whatever they had. But just what an accomplishment for each of them. But we also need to think about where are the kids who didn't make it and didn't have that milestone. And how can we, as we approach this coming school year, work to make sure that we have more kids in those seats at graduation? What are we missing? What are those supports? How do we strengthen reading? All of the things, we talk about, but we have to prioritize graduating everybody. That helps our numbers too. I mean, there's more dollars if you have more kids. So how do we keep them and how do we get them to graduation? Because we're missing out on, getting everybody to that wonderful milestone that ultimately impacts their whole future. So collectively, we have work to do.
Thank you. I'll conclude then. I'm not telling you anything that you haven't seen or heard on world, national, state, or even local news to know that there are many people who treat their colleagues disrespectfully in government bodies. And I'm pleased to say, and I'm proud to be a member of a group, the Thompson School District Board of Education, who, although we don't always agree with each other, nor should we, treat each other with respect, treat each other civilly, and I think model behavior that's important for our students to say, or to see, and to observe, and perhaps to participate in themselves. That concludes the board comment part of the meeting. Looking at your agenda, you will see that item number 9, there is the section entitled Written Reports. We have a family PIE packet from June 2nd, 2026. Board, are there any requests for information as we move into the summer? Lori, you have something?
I know that they are working on the exit survey, or I'm assuming, and then I guess that kind of goes along lines of, with Director Scholes, that looking at how we can best address other choices. And then maybe something for the future would be possibly the formation of a budget committee to be a little bit more involved, or just having that on our docket more often as far as information and the laying out of the budget.
All right, anyone else? Anything in the category of requests for information? I don't have anything either. The meeting is adjourned. Board, enjoy your summer.